so let's talk about footwork, specifically a model of how does one step. Not specifically how should one step, but what are all the different physical ways that you can step. And the way we're going to do this classification is to classify off of stepping from one leg. And the reason we do that, footwork in just about every martial art is done so that when you take a step, at some point, whether you do it with a certain type of stance or whatever, you are going to come and basically step and walk off of a single leg. I think there can be cases where that gets broken, but you know, those I think are the exception, not the rule, and of course we're going to talk about that further. So, making that assumption, if we are on a single leg, there's basically three important components to how to step. So one is obviously direction, and we'll go through sort of different examples in a little bit, but direction is definitely one thing. Then the next thing is the distance, so whether I step narrow or I step long, okay? So the third bit that I really want to make sure we put out there as something for people to think about is the direction that you turn after you make that step. So for instance, if I am to step this way, without any bias about the turn, that foot's going to point directly in the direction I'm stepping in. But I can step this way, and I can step this way. And you know, you might do this for different reasons. One good reason, I think, to do those sorts of things is if you're going to be turning after you do those steps. So for instance, if I do this, that lends itself to a turn in that direction afterward. And if I step this way, it lends itself to a turn in the other direction. So again, sort of three components to footwork. The angle that you're stepping in, the distance between the feet, and then the direction that you might be turning, and therefore the bias that the foot turns in when you do those steps. All right, so we're going to go through a couple examples now. These are just sort of discrete examples, but I'd say they're fairly major examples, sort of like the cardinal directions. So, okay, if we start off with this as kind of the planted leg, so we'll just start off going this direction, right? So from here, you know, this is a very typical one, if you're thinking about Meyer, is triangle. But again, in terms of those directions you can turn, I think people sometimes forget that you can also do things like this to go that way. So again, not saying that you're going to do that the majority of the time, but that is an option. So that's something mechanically that a person can do and may be useful at some point for an interpretation. So that was that direction. There's of course going backwards. Oh, sorry, so this way. So that's if the foot just goes straight this way, but again, I can turn that foot and I can go this way. And this is where you start to see some of that body leaning stuff that I think you see in various sources. So just as you can go backwards that way, you can go to the side. Again, you can go this way and sort of still be based forward. But if you turn your foot, you can go this way and lean away. So that's where some of that body leaning stuff comes from. Then going forward this way, you can come this way without any bias. You can come this way and be turning this way, which a lot of people like to do, but there's also the possibility of this sort of thing. So again, mechanically, that's something you can do. Coming forward, no bias. If you come this way, you get that sort of crow foot that we talked about, or we can come this way and that way. Okay? And then finally, another area where you can get crow foot, sounds like a disease, but anyway. So you can step this way without bias, but you can come this way, and that's certainly useful for coming to the outside. Or you can come and turn this way. So one other thing worth pointing out, so if this is my planted foot, this is the area where it's sort of like that null space. It's very difficult for me to really go anywhere off of that foot. And yeah, anyway, so those are sort of the major directions and sort of the application of those three critical things. The direction, obviously very important, how far you step, and then finally, you know, that pivot in that direction that you might be turning afterward, which makes a difference about which way the foot's going to turn. Okay?